All right, so let's get started. All right, so hopefully you can see that. I don't. There we go. All right, so my name is Summer Rothrock. I serve as the Parent and Family Liaison here at the University of Pittsburgh. I use she, her pronouns. I have been here in Student Affairs at the University of Pittsburgh for 15 years, but am new to the Parent and Family Liaison role and really excited to spend this time with you to make sure that you know who your support system is, which is myself and my colleagues in the Division of Student Affairs, so that you can best support your student. A little bit about me as we get into our agenda for the day is that I currently have two children. They're 10 and 7, and so I have a new middle schooler as of yesterday. And so I'll take all of your middle school survival tips, and then I'll give you all my university tips as well, and we can trade those back and forth. So today what we're going to be doing is we have our welcome and introductions. We have an overview of student affairs. We will meet the Dean of Students and hear from Dr. Carla Panzella. Sorry, I was getting right into pillars of wellness as I was pre-reading on my screen. We'll review a little bit about the pillars of wellness, go over some resources, and then lots of time for your questions and answers. But first, as maybe you're sitting down for your lunch break, you're joining us on a car ride, wherever you're joining us for this virtual session, we just want you to take a moment to take that deep breath. You're doing great. We're really glad you're here. We hope that your student is adjusting well to campus, but we also recognize that that adjustment period takes some time. You might be getting a lot of mixed emotions from your student, and that is really normal. And that adjustment and transition period looks different and takes a different amount of time for everyone. And so we want you to know that what you're doing should work for your student. It doesn't necessarily need to work for other students. You know your student and you know how to support them on the transition that works best for them. And when those questions come up, those resources, those ways that you're like, I'm not sure how to navigate the university system, that's where we are a great resource. Summer, can you connect me to this? Can you let me know who is the right person for my student to connect with to get their answer, to help them on their transition? So a little bit about student affairs, as you will hear from our Dean of Students in just a moment. Student affairs is broken into 5 teams that are really set up to support your student. We have our student experience team, our student community and inclusion team, our student wellness team, who you'll hear from our student health services and our residence life team today, our student engagement and professional development team, and our business and operations team, which is where parent and family resources sits. So all of our resources, programs, services for students are housed within one of those teams so that we can work collaboratively together. We can make sure to create a team approach as we support your student in having their best 4 years or more with us here at the University of Pittsburgh. And leading all of that effort is our Dean of Students, Dr. Carla Panzella. She has served as the Dean of Students at Pitt since August of 2021. As Dean of Students, Dr. Panzella provides leadership for innovative co-curricular programs, activities, and services that promote student well-being, sense of belonging, engagement, and diverse learning experiences. She is also responsible for the strategic direction and management of the student experience, student community and belonging, student wellness, and student engagement and professional leadership teams. Those sound familiar. Prior to joining Pitt, Dr. Panzella served as the Associate Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students at Salem State University in Salem, Massachusetts. She holds a PhD in higher education from Seton Hall University, where she completed her dissertation research on post-secondary pathways, a study of low-income Black and Latino students. And she holds an MA in organizational psychology and leadership from the Teachers College of Columbia University and a BS in psychology from St. Peter's University. Carla believes that it is vitally important for public universities to advance and promote inclusive excellence and to be student-ready institutions that anticipate and meet student needs. Please welcome Dr. Panzella to tell us more about that.
Good afternoon. I just want to make sure I have successfully unmuted myself, which that feels like a win for the day. Good afternoon. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces and see some of your names on the screen. I know, as Summer shared, you're probably fitting this in while living very busy lives, and we're so glad that you're here to join us. It's been wonderful meeting your students. We've spent a couple of days with them so far, and they're pretty fantastic. You may have already known this, but we're excited to learn it as well. And we're excited to help them kind of make their transition, but we also know that our role is to help you with this transition as well. I want to talk a little bit about my role as the Dean of Students and your role as a family member partnering with us to support your students. My role as the Dean of Students is to listen to students and families, to support student success, and to advocate for students when they have concerns. With the Vice Provost for Student Affairs, Dr. Kenyon Bonner, and I lead the Division of Student Affairs. So the Division of Student Affairs is composed of 200 professional staff members who are here to support students' holistic well-being through residence life, the Student Health Services, the University Counseling Center, the Career Center, the Office of Inclusion and Belonging, the Office of Pitt Serves, the Office of Involvement and Student Unions, Student Leadership Programs, student organizations, and 2 student media outlets, the Pitt News and our radio station, WPTS, and other offices, programs, and resources. That's quite a bit of a mouthful, by the way, so that's just a small glimpse of everything that we do with our students here. We encourage your students to get involved and to explore new areas of interest. We also encourage students to take care of themselves. This is a really big idea and things that we're really focusing on. Each year, the Provost and CUD announces a theme that we begin engaging throughout the year. And in 2022-2023 academic year is the year of emotional well-being. Can't imagine why she chose that for this year coming. So students will hear me and others talk about that a lot, and about them taking care of themselves and others. Our philosophy of well-being is that it should be holistic. So we encourage students to pay attention to the 8 pillars of wellness, 8 pillars of well-being, including emotional, physical, intellectual, spiritual, occupational, environmental, financial, and social well-being. For many of our students, some of their social support and well-being comes from family. So how can you support your students? That's what we're going to talk about right now. So I really want to talk a little bit about the transition. And could I just ask if folks can mute themselves? There's a little bit of feedback that I'm getting on this call, and I want to make sure everybody can hear okay. Many universities often talk about students as adults, right? They're adults now, so we have to do certain things. So here at Pitt, we really think about students as emerging adults, and so that's a bit nuanced, right? The idea that they're leaving their childhood, but they're not quite full adults, and we want to see that as a special time and a time that needs nurturing and support. Developmentally, they're at the beginning of this process as first-year students, right? And we understand that, and we want you to be partners in that development. We want them to have that independence once they graduate and be fully emerged adults. And we want to give them that confidence to do that. Back to your role. So really, up until this point, particularly in K through 12, that we've asked you, parents and families, to take the driver's seat, right? A lot of times, you can see yourself as a coach, right? You've called the shots, you drew the plans for the game, right? You were the coach, you were encouraging your student, but you were also calling the shots. We really want you to consider transitioning to becoming a cheerleader. So on the sidelines, very much engaged, watching what's going on, and reacting, right, when something happens, and being there, and sort of a safety net, if you will. Our job as cheerleaders is really a scaffolding responsibility. So think about this year, as first-year students, we know that students are going to need a little bit more support. So as they move through their years at Pitt, you're going to want to let go a little bit more, have them make those decisions, and encourage them on the sidelines. We know that this is baby steps, and some of you are going to be at different levels of comfort around this. I'm just working through my notes to make sure I capture all the information that I need to share with you. So the first 6 weeks are going to be crucial in transitioning to college. By a show of hands, how many of you have had, and if you can use the raise your hand feature, how many of you, this is your first student to go to college? I'm scrolling through the screens just to kind of get a sense. Quite a bit of you. Okay, great. And for others, thank you for sharing that. You can lower your hand. Oh, it's still loading. Wow. Okay. Great. For some of you, this is maybe a second child or multiple students going to school, but it may be also the first student going to Pitt. It may be a very different child, right? We don't make any assumptions that each person's experience is going to be the same. For some of you, this might be your first experience with college. Potentially, you have not gone to college yourself. I'm a first generation college student. My parents did not go to college. And so a lot of times our conversations are different. So for some of you, that might be your experience. For those of you who may have attended college, I also acknowledge that it was a different time, likely, when you went to college. Things have changed pretty significantly. I know they have for when I've been in college, and no longer do I say as the dean of students, well, when I was in college, we used to do this, because nobody on staff wants to hear about that. And certainly the students don't want to hear about that unless it was something, that I did that was against the rules. Then they find that very amusing that the dean did something against the rules. That's for sure. So the first 6 weeks are crucial. We know that the more engaged they are, the more likely they are to be successful and graduate. So we have designed programs over the next 6 weeks to get them engaged, right? That makes sense. And so the last 2 days they've been sitting in the Pete. How many of you have heard about them sitting in the Pete? It's our Peterson Event Center. Yes, right. And they are wonderful. I have to tell you, they're the most cooperative large group I have been a part of recently, but I will tell you that it must be quite challenging for them to walk up that hill and sit in those seats time and time again. Today is our last sort of formal large scale event that we're asking them to do that with, but we know that the more likely they get this information, we ask them to practice the information. We have social educational events for them to interact with one another. We know that these are good events for them. Okay. So we also know that there's some challenges with transition like this, particularly leaving home for those of the students who are living on campus, and most of our students are living on our campus, right, as first years. We know that. And so that transition could be very difficult. And I would typically go into, I want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers, but I'll just give some examples of potentially maybe some text messages you all have received from your student, because that's how they communicate now. So if you could share with me, maybe by, again, raising your hand or an applause or some kind of feature in one of those reaction buttons, tell me if you have received a text message from your student about their roommate. Yeah, they're coming in. Yeah, like I'm popping all over the screen because so many, yeah. So, you may have already received a text message. I'm gonna have to change my view. We were popping around so much. You may have received this text message. It might have gone something like, "Mom, can you please make this stop? I need to either come home or change my roommate, call the office, do something like that." Or my roommate is so weird, she does this or doesn't do this. Okay, some iteration of "Mom, do something." So typically what I would do in an open session is ask folks for their reaction. And what we hope that you will do, if you have the instinct, to call an office. I'm going to call the office. I'm going to get them a new roommate. Or if your instinct was, I'm going to come get you. Short of a health and safety matter, we hope that you resist this urge to do these things. We hope that you go from coach, that you would have done those things, to cheerleader or support person that says, okay, 1, let's take a breath and let's see what this really is about. 2, is this in the bucket of transition and difference? Is this in the bucket of health and safety? Or is this in the bucket of, I'm trying to think of another bucket, maybe your own discomfort, right? Your own opportunity for growth. And we know that a lot of growth doesn't take place unless you're feeling a little uncomfortable. And so helping your student kind of work through those situations versus resolving them for them would be really important, and something that I encourage you. Yay, I see, I happen, it's hard for me to speak and read, and I do see that somebody is indicating that it's a good roommate. Those are always wonderful, but challenging roommate situations can arise at any point. And it's just an example of the challenging interactions that students might have. This might be an issue with a faculty member and maybe not connecting right away with the faculty member on a certain topic. You may have received an email that says, hey, family person, I love so much. The food here is awful. There's nothing for me to eat. And I share that, and I'm not worried about sharing that because we have so many opportunities for students to get different food and the food that is helpful for them. We're going to hear a little bit about some of our resources, but I'll share with you that as an example, and I want to sort of instill trust and confidence in you, we have thought of things that all students or some students have had challenges with. So dietary needs, it might be something where they have one, can't identify where the food is that they are able to have. Two, we have a nutritionist. If in the small event that there isn't food for them that they're able to have due to dietary restrictions or health concerns, we have somebody who can help them find it, make it for them, provide it for them daily, right? So again, just one example and a small example of the many things that we've thought through. We have Summer here on our staff to help connect you to all those people, because there is not a long enough webinar or a Zoom call that we can have that can share all. I don't know all the things that we have for all of you. I've only been here 1 year, but I do know that they are extensive. In the unlikely event that there's something, we don't have a person, well, we have a senior staff and leadership here who can help work through any challenge that we're facing. Okay, so I'm going to pass it back on to Summer. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm so glad that you've chosen to join us, and we hope that we will see you during some of the events that families are more than welcome to come to.
Thank you so much, Dr. Panzella. I am going to review just a few slides of critical resources, what we've deemed at this point critical resources, right? Meeting those immediate needs of safety, food, and a little bit of the future things that your student may need. And I know it might seem wild that we have 300 people on a Zoom call, but the chat is making me so happy. I see people offering to connect their students to each other, lots of good things, but also lots of good questions and ways that I know that my colleagues and I are going to be able to provide you with some resources to get those to your students. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. Nope, that's the sign up for the newsletter I put in the chat. There we go. All right, so our first slide is student safety. So we talked a little bit about this in Dean Panzella's remarks, but I would like you to make sure that there's a few things that you can tell your student to do, and there's even some things that you can sign up for. The first for your student is our Rave Guardian app. It is an app supported by our Office of Public Safety and is really, really critical for your student to be able to have access. They can call directly to our Pitt police. They have access to numbers and ways to get connected for safety. They're able to report things on campus as well as be notified about any safety concerns that may be happening on campus. Our Safe Rider program provides 25 safe rides per year for students. And Safe Rider is not Uber. It's not an Uber. It is truly for those situations where your student is at home and library and it's now 2 a.m. They've really been studying for that chem test that's coming up. And they're like, oh, I'm about to walk home and all my friends have already left. And I'm not feeling the safest at 2 a.m. to walk home. They call Safe Rider, they request a ride, or they can request one as well in their Rave Guardian app. Safe Rider will come pick them up. Again, it's not an Uber. It is a free service for truly when they do need that safe ride to get them home. But also it's important to note that they don't have to provide a reason that needs to be validated for why they need a Safe Rider. They can just say, I need a Safe Rider, but they should know why and when to use Safe Rider. Our emergency notification system, ENS, because we give everything an acronym. That's half the challenges at a university. Everything is an acronym. You can also sign up for our ENS system as well as your students, and they push out immediate safety concern notices for our campus for emergency notifications that are happening in real time. Crime alerts are sometimes posted on campus, and those are things that are not providing in real time safety concerns, but that might impact our students and our Oakland community that we want people to be aware of. And those are posted both on the Rave Guardian app, the Pitt Police website, and on paper on doors, right? How old fashioned we just print out paper. We haven't talked about paper in a little bit, but they also print and hang those up. Want to make sure that you know the Pitt Police website, police.pitt.edu. Lots of good safety resources, as well as links to some of the things that we've already talked about. Our Pitt Concerns Connection, run out of our Office of Ethics, Integrity, and Investigations. I mess their office name up all the time. They need an acronym so that I can get that office name right. And that is an anonymous way to report concerns on campus. They can be academic concerns, they can be behavioral concerns, and they'll be investigated and directed to the correct professional to be able to evaluate and provide solutions for those. 2 phone numbers that I would like your students to save in their phones. Please note, everyone who registered for this presentation, even if they weren't able to join us right now, will receive this PowerPoint via email. Oh, good, I see some heads nodding. Thank you. Yes, you will get this PowerPoint via email, so those numbers will be there. But really suggest the Panther Central number and our Pitt Police emergency number. Dining on campus. I know that Serena already put the link in the chat, but dineoncampus.com/Pitt shows open options of what eateries are open on campus, again, in real time. It shows the menus for the day and those real-time updates. This is really great for when you get that text message, there's nothing to eat, or after 2 weeks, I'm sick of the chicken patty. So tell your student, head to dineoncampus.com/Pitt and see what other options. Invite a friend if something looks good on the menu. Also just wanted to review real basically the 3 ways that your students may be purchasing food if they have a meal plan. Our meal swipes is 1 swipe access to any of our all you care to eat facilities on campus. Dining dollars can be used at any campus dining location, and they roll over from the fall to spring semester, but they expire at the end of the spring semester. So it may be great as just a reminder on your calendar for your student around, end of March, beginning of April, that if they have a lot of dining dollars left over, they need to be utilizing those so money is not wasted. And then Panther funds can be used on campus for food and non-food items like laundry. They're also accepted at some off-campus locations as well, and they'll have signs on, a lot of restaurants will have signs on their doors, Panther funds accepted here. And they basically use it like a debit card. It's directly loaded onto their Pitt ID, and you can load them more Panther funds from the Panther Central website. Our FERPA, our Privacy Act, which is a US federal law, want to make sure that you are aware and able to talk to your students about your mutual expectations around this, that only your student is able to access their academic information. So you won't get a report card home in the mail. You won't get a login to their Pitt portal to be able to see their academic records. Only your student can access their academic records, and that is by law. If you'd like to learn more about a FERPA release that your student would fill out and submit, you'd want to go to our registrar's website, which is right there, registrar.pitt.edu, to learn more about FERPA and to see a FERPA release if that's something that you and your student wanted to discuss and set an expectation around. Looking ahead, a few things I want to make sure you know about. Welcome Week is still going on. Saw some things in the chat that loving all of the programs. There's a lot to do. It is a packed calendar. Hopefully by this time they've downloaded the guidebook app and are able to decide where they want to be. They know their mandatory programs, and they're going to those things during Welcome Week and hopefully trying out some new programs. Add drop period. This date, I know I will get this to your email, but a really critical date for you to know is September 9th. That is the last day of our add drop period. So that's the last day to add a class or drop a class without financial repercussions. And I know for me, I'm like, oh, September 9th. Yes, we're still in August, but that date will sneak up on us, right? The semester comes at us quickly. Your student gets into their routine quickly. So they'll need to make some quick decisions about classes if they want to make changes and need to speak to their advisor about that. Family weekend, September 23rd to the 25th. Hopefully you have your calendars marked for this. We have been fielding lots of questions about registration. Registration was supposed to open in early August. And our colleagues building our registration site have been running into some tech issues. I'm really hopeful that we are, hopefully at this point, sort of hours away from opening family weekend registration, if not maybe just a few more days. And we will send out an email to all of our parent distribution lists. So of all of our parents of incoming students, as well as all parents and families that are signed up for our newsletter. And that link is in the chat right now. We'll put it back in so it stays close to the bottom of the chat. We will send out as soon as family weekend registration is open, but we also want to make sure you know that family weekend will not fill up. Family weekend registration will stay open until September 16th. You'll be able to buy your football game tickets directly on that registration. So football game tickets and registration will happen on the same site. That's been our most frequently asked questions. So I thought I'd answer it while I have a large audience. The next time maybe we could all get together on a Zoom call would be our Wellness Wednesdays, hosted by my office and the Associate Dean of Students for Wellness, Dr. Jay Dar. They are a virtual opportunity that you can register for on our website. They're an hour meeting, second Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. where Dr. Dar will review a wellness topic that could be impacting your student at whatever month that we're in the semester. As we get closer to finals, we'll talk a little bit more about the pressure and stress of finals. And we know the routine and rhythm of the semesters, and then time for a Q&A during that hour. And just another plug for those family newsletters. Want to make sure that you have our website information and our dedicated email and phone number if you need to contact the Office of Parent and Family Resources. Again, this will come to your email. And then it's time for our question to answer. I am going to stop sharing because I have some colleagues to introduce you to that are going to join me to be able to field questions and get you those answers. We have just under 30 minutes to do so. So I'm going to try to do these introductions really quickly. So Dean Panzella, myself, as well as two colleagues, Kayla Dunn, who serves as our Assistant Director in Residence Life. Thank you, Kayla, for giving a little wave if you're watching your screen. And Dr. Lissa Weddick, who serves as our Interim Director in Student Health Services. As a reminder, please send your questions directly in the chat to Serena Moore, and she will get them out to our panelists who will unmute and answer.
Thanks, everyone. I apologize if I haven't gotten to your question yet. We'll try to address all of them, but some of the information will be coming to you in the family newsletters, particularly about family weekend and registering for that. I know there were a number of questions in the chat about that. But I want to pitch a question to Kayla. So we had a question about Carlo students. We have a number of students who are being housed in residence halls at Carlo, which is quite close to us. And there was a question about how are we integrating those students in our student experiences and programming so they really feel a part of Pitt. So Kayla, I'm going to let you answer that question.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, know that we have professional staff and student staff at Carlo, right? So our students living in Carlo have an RA who's an upper class Pitt student. We have 5 RAs over there for our student staff. We also have a professional staff member who is serving as the resident director in that space. And so just like any other residence hall has a professional staff member as a point of contact, as do our students who are living in Carlo. Our student staff in that space follow our residential curriculum. It's the same curriculum that our student staff in Tower B or Holland would follow, and really about engaging students, helping them, I think, to what Summer was naming, expand on their experiences, right? To learn a little bit about themselves and others, and also feel connected and like they belong at the University of Pittsburgh. So the long answer short is we are doing everything that we are doing in every other residence hall to serve our students in those spaces and make sure that they are in the fold and connected to Pitt as much as any other student would be.
Thanks, Kayla. And I know there was another question in the chat about like Lothrop being added to that, but the same would hold true for Lothrop as well, as integrating those students into programming. We have a lot of questions about dining dollars and Panther Pitt funds, and do those funds end at the end of the semester? Do they follow a student to the next term? Some questions about like, how does that work if you're using your meal swipe to get something at Chick-fil-A, then like, what if you go over that $10? So can you just talk more about the dining options and the different funds, and like, what's the difference between just using like a debit card? That was another question there.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Also, the caveat, one thing that's important to know about the University of Pittsburgh is our housing and our residence life are bifurcated systems. So for residence life, I'm really focusing on the educational involvement, belonging, support of our students, where our friends in housing and auxiliary services, you've heard them called Panther Central, like the hub. They're the ones kind of navigating more dining as well as facilities. However, I happen to be well versed in meal plans, so I can speak, and I've spoke to a number of families about that during arrival. So the primary sorts of ways that students will eat first is just going to be the swipes, right? Most of our first year students coming in have unlimited swipes into the dining halls. We have two kind of all you can eat buffets, for lack of a better term, the Eatery, which is in the Litchfield Towers area, and then the Perch, which is in Sutherland. So essentially a student can swipe in and eat 15 plates of food, or they can walk in and grab an apple and walk out, right? They have those swipes. And again, for most of our first year students, those swipes are going to be unlimited. And a popular meal plan is weekday unlimited. So you have to look at that as well. Our dining dollars can be used at any of the on-campus sort of vendors. So the coffee carts, Chick-fil-A, there's a lot of eateries at the Peterson Event Center. There's a lot of eateries in the William Pitt Union at the basement level. And that is a primary and popular space where folks will use their dining dollars. Swipes and dining dollars are a part of the meal plan. So you have up until add drop to kind of identify if the meal plan really works for your student based on their schedule and where they're eating. You can always change your meal plan on the Panther Central website. Panther funds are what I would call the university's most versatile spending. And Panther funds can be added by your student here on campus. We have a Panther funds reader. The most popular one is in Litchfield Towers, right outside of Panther Central, but also anyone can add Panther funds to a student's ID card over the internet. And either Serena or I can drop that website, the Panther Central website, in the chat where you can do that. Students have to have Panther funds to do their laundry, but they can also use Panther funds at a lot of popular vendors, both on campus and off. So Rite Aid, Permante's, those places take Panther funds as well. So I would say the difference between credit or debit, transparently, it's a helpful way for students to kind of budget and manage their own spending. It's much better for them to run out of, in my opinion, to run out of Panther funds than to run out of bank account money, right? It's kind of a little bit more easy to navigate and to have a conversation about, perhaps. So those are kind of the hot takes on the meal plans, right? And on Panther funds. And I would encourage your student to really dig in to what their meal plan looks like for them based on their class schedule, where they have time to eat, when they have time to eat, because there is flexibility in the time that you have to adjust the meal plan. And then dining dollars and Panther funds expiring. I'm not going to answer that question because I don't want to give you incorrect information, but I will work to identify the website, make sure Serena has it. And I will say that our partners in housing send that information out to students. So students are aware in an email, hey, we're coming to the end of semester, we're coming to the end of term. This is what this looks like, so that folks can, manage their spending appropriately.
Thanks, Kayla. Yeah, Panther Central has a newsletter that they send out to students, as well as Pitt Eats, our dining partner, sends out a newsletter to students as well. Kayla, I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to switch over to Lissa. A question about the lounges in towers that were converted. Is there a plan to reconvert to some common spaces and have more common spaces available?
That is the plan. I will say, if your student is in a lounge, typically one of the issues that we have, to be very honest, is that folks then don't want to leave. The room is huge. I love it, right? I have all the space. But we do understand that for community purposes, at this point in time, every tower has one lounge for community space. We also have the large towers lounge, which is actually outside. It's in the towers complex, but it's not in any particular towers. And so we have students who are using that space, and we're really working with our RAs to be creative, particularly where the weather's nice, about getting students out and about anyway, right? Showing them around Oakland, taking them to different spaces in the city. So being creative while we still have some great weather. But housing would call it melt. And as we have students who perhaps didn't move in, we have an understanding of where we are, right? And what spaces we have as people are kind of moving and grooving. I will say very publicly, because Dean Panzella brought up the roommate piece, we do start navigating room changes after ad drop. So just know, if your student comes to you and they said I can't move, they probably were told that, right, until after ad drop. And so after that's kind of where we have a better idea of where we land, and we do try to make sure that we are having common spaces. So that might be relocating some students into some more traditional type spaces to ensure that, again, we have those. It's all about providing community space and spaces for community engagement. So that was a great question.
Great, thank you. Lissa, I'm going to hold on your question for a second and pitch to Dean Panzella. So Dean Panzella, we're getting some questions about just our emergency protocols, risk management. How do we evaluate? What do those teams look like? We had a question about monitoring social media for emergency situations. So I wonder if you could talk a lot more about our crisis response.
Sure. It's a note that, I'm not the chief of police, and so I know a big portion of our security is managed by our chief and the folks in emergency management. But I can say that we have I call it a multi-prong approach to student safety. I would say that we have a full sworn police department on our campus that work very closely with our city of Pittsburgh. So we have our University of Pittsburgh sworn police that work with the city of Pittsburgh. They work very closely to share and communicate information about large and small cases alike. They do monitor emergency management. We have an emergency management team as well that manages I would say outside of the university crisis, and also keeps us included in that. Internally, we do monitor social media, and we do have some mechanisms in place. We also have what we would call a care team and a threat assessment team. Our care team is really to triangulate information about students that they may have some challenges, and our goal is always to get students the most support at the first level possible, making sure that they get support as quickly as possible. Sometimes students manifest behaviors across the campus in small doses. And so when we bring everyone together to discuss it, we realize that a student might be in greater need or greater risk to themselves and others. And so we're able to gather that information quickly via that behavioral intervention and care team. And then, of course, we have a threat assessment team that evaluates students and other threats to the campus regularly when they arise. And we meet regularly to make sure that we're monitoring those behaviors. So we also ask students to monitor their own behavior and those around them, take care of themselves and their peers, but also to report and share. We give them information on how to do that. We give them our police information. We ask them to reach out to us 24/7 with any information. It really is the see something, say something concept. Our students do a really nice job of sharing with us. They can use their Rave Guardian app that they have access to share that information with us very quickly by the touch of the button. We know that sometimes they don't want to get on the phone and talk to us. We also know that they also don't want to share information specifically with their names on it. Serena, you could drop in the chat maybe the Pitt Care, I'm going to get this right, the Pitt Care connection. And that is a way that students can report any concerns. It could be something like, my faculty member is, saying something that's making me uncomfortable versus to anything, right? I had a situation off campus that I want to share, or some kind of other situation. Obviously, we want them to dial 911 if they have an immediate emergency, as well as giving them campus safety. I was here last night with your students. We had a health and safety event. We had our 2 officers up at the podium. We shared a video, we shared phone numbers, we shared social media, and so many ways that they can share information about how they're doing and about their safety. So that is something that we take very seriously at the university. And thanks for the questions.
Great. Thank you, Dean Panzella. I'm going to answer verbally a question in the chat because I think this might be helpful for everyone. If your student is having trouble with email, logging on, Duo Mobile, getting on your phone, anything like that, they can contact the help desk. So just helpdesk@pitt.edu, I think is what it is, or they can email the help desk, they can call the help desk. And Pitt IT is very responsive. Those tickets get closed out very quickly. So that should solve that. Lissa, I'm going to pitch some questions to you now. And I wonder if you could talk more about, we had some questions about, can students get primary care at student health services? And who does a student call or contact if they're not feeling well? So if you could talk more about our care of students at student health services, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Yeah, that is one of the things. I've been here for 17 years, and I always say that we like to serve as a student's primary care away from home, meaning that we have 4 physicians, 3 physician extenders, and registered nurses. Anybody who wants to see us can call to make an appointment. We're here Mondays and Thursdays, 9 A to 7 P. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 5, Saturday, 10 to 3. If it's after hours, we do have a nurse hotline, so that a student can speak with the nurse if they have any concerns. And obviously, we are in Oakland, which means we share the footprint with UPMC, so that students have access to high quality emergency care if it's indicated in the after hours. But we do it all. We are, like myself, I'm a family physician. So we do everything from, I sprained my ankle to I have, I think my thyroid might be doing something weird, to I think I have celiac disease. We really see it all. And we also, we had a freshman who walked in yesterday because she had inadvertently ingested a nut, and she was having an anaphylactic reaction, and we took care of her and hung on to her for a little bit. So we pretty much are able to do most everything that like your family physician or pediatrician could do. We also do allergy shots. I know a lot of students have allergy shots that they need to have administered.
Thanks so much. We have a lot of questions in the chat, both I think to everyone and also just to me directly, about how to submit a FERPA release form and how to stay kind of connected to how your student is doing. And with that, I would just suggest having your student contact their academic advisor and ask the academic advisor about, how do I get connected to this particular activity that I want to be involved in, or academic activity? How do I submit the FERPA form? Give my parents access to that. So they're going to be the best, like the closest contact for those sorts of questions.
Yeah, and if I can share developmentally, I think the goal is for you to start those conversations at home with them when they come back for maybe it's fall break, maybe it's a time you see them on a weekend. How are you doing in your classes? Really, as I mentioned earlier, the transfer of responsibility goes from you to them. And so this is one of those moments where that transfer is seen in a big way from a parental and family perspective. And so really they're ultimately responsible to share those pieces with you. We will not reach out to you about, failing a test or incomplete assignments and that sort of thing, right? That's something that the student will have a platform online. They will be able to access that and be able to have that information. And so you'll see final grades at the end of the semester if the student signs the FERPA release, and it allows you to have access to those grades.
Okay. I wanted to add one more thing to that. So thank you to Amy in the chat directly to me. The FERPA page mentions that the student can email the registrar with the FERPA release. So the registrar's office is who is handling those releases. Okay. Great. I want to go back a little bit, and Lissa, if you want to talk just a little bit about COVID protocols this year. Things have changed. Things have been changing for the last 2 years. If you want to give us just a quick snapshot of that, we have some questions about a variety of things like isolation and testing and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we this year the model is that as opposed to having, so we encourage students to test before they arrived on campus, just to hope to catch anybody before they arrived, so that they could isolate before coming to campus. When students arrived on campus, they were asked to administer a PCR test, which was sent out, and we're getting about a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. So your student may get a call from one of our COVID support folks saying, hey, I know you might feel well, but your COVID test came back positive. And those people will review isolation guidelines, which the isolation guidelines are for 5 days. We're following the CDC, and then the following 5 days with good masking. We at Student Health are able to provide, we have a rapid PCR testing in process. So that means that we can see symptomatic students here and administer COVID testing if they have a runny nose or have some sort of symptoms that they're concerned about. Students who are close contacts or who have other concerns can go to the O'Hara Student Center. So that, is there anything else? Any other questions about that?
I guess I'll just add that I think the big picture around COVID is that we are working toward understanding that we're going to live in an endemic, that we're moving from pandemic to endemic, and that we are asking for students to have that personal responsibility. If they don't feel well, if they notice symptoms, that they get themselves over to the health services to talk with some folks and to get tested, that they communicate with their faculty member, and that they share with their roommates. Really, it is a personal responsibility that we're going to be living with.
Great, thank you. One last question for Lissa about a flu shot clinic. If you could talk about a bit about that.
Well, we're very excited because every year we have our Healthy You Fair, and we will be administering flu shots at that fair, which is on September 14th. Students will be encouraged to pre-register for their flu shots, though that's not mandatory. It just makes it more seamless to get them through the process. If that's not convenient for their schedule, at the Student Health Service, we offer flu shots, and then we partner with the Hub, which is another sort of, it's not in student health, but it's very close to student health, where they also administer flu shots as well as COVID boosters. And we are hopeful that we will be getting the new and improved bivalent, which is going to be what the new Omicron focused COVID booster will be. We don't have it yet, but hopefully getting it at some point during the fall.
Great, thank you. And Lissa, I have two more things for you, and I'm going to pass it back to Summer because I know we're getting toward the end of time here, and to Dean Penzella for last thoughts. So Lissa, boosters, if you could talk about the Pitt COVAX, opportunities there, and then also your partners in University Counseling Center. If you could talk just a little bit about like services that are available to students, and that they can access those, and what's available in the University Counseling Center.
Yeah, absolutely. So COVAX, also known as the Hub, they're kind of going through transition time with their name, does offer COVID boosters if your student is eligible for them. They offer all of them. So they have the Moderna as well as the Pfizer. And I can assure you that I just actually had a meeting with them earlier today. As soon as we get the new COVID booster, we will be putting out a lot of messaging, and probably we'll have some mass clinics at a place like the Peterson to be able to accommodate the interest in it. Otherwise, yeah, so we share a floor in Nordenberg Hall with the university counseling folks, and they offer individual as well as multiple opportunities for group counseling. Students are able to do what they call just a drop-in visit when it's convenient for them. I know we partner very closely with them. So if we're seeing a student in the clinic and feel that they might benefit, or have the opportunity to walk them straight out, and they're able to be accommodated.
Okay, and I know I said that was the end for you, but it's not. If you could talk to
Okay.
me briefly, we have 3 minutes left. We have a lot of questions about health insurance and the student health services and how does
Yeah, so we're like, we want to participate with everybody. So sometimes people don't want to participate with us. The primary thing that I'd say is that it seems like it's all good, except for folks that are coming from the eastern side of the state who have Geisinger, which is kind of problematic because they don't like participating with people outside of their zone. Similar for folks coming from the west coast of our country who have Kaiser. Otherwise, we participate with pretty much everybody. And even if a student has insurance that we are not able to take, we have a fee schedule, which is very, very affordable and inexpensive. We don't want costs to be a barrier. Oh, and wait, was there something else about insurance? And the university does have a health insurance plan. If you look at your health insurance and determine, oh, wow, it looks like they don't want to cover for my student in Pittsburgh, that's something that you can take advantage of. And just because I'm a neurotic person, of course, anytime my children leave the Pittsburgh area, I always call my insurance and be like, hey, my kid's in, San Diego, will you cover him while he's out there? So it's something I feel like it's better to know that, and to know in the event of an emergency, if your child had to go to the emergency room, just to make sure that that would be covered as well. Because you don't want a stressful situation to be more stressful by not knowing about coverage. So I recommend doing that in advance.
Well, folks, we are at time. I want to make sure that you all saw the sign up for the newsletter. We could spend the whole day together sharing our policies and procedures and giving you advice. Love the engagement, appreciate the engagement. Please know that we couldn't get to all of your questions, but we hope to send out information, maybe some FAQs, since it seems like there were quite a bit of frequently asked questions, as well as links to some of the information that is already readily available for you on the website. Sometimes it's kind of filtering through that, which is another reason why you can reach out to Summer and ask questions. You can imagine that the next couple of weeks will be very busy for Summer, and so she will be responding in the order that she received with the information and helping you get the information you need. You were a fantastic audience, very engaged with wonderful questions and thoughts. I hope that we have given you the confidence that we are going to take the most wonderful care of your students while they're here. We want your engagement and your participation and support for their development, and we wish them and you the greatest success. Have a great day.
Thank you.